I feel so humiliated, you know? I feel like I was dehumanized.
I don't even know if people in open relationships even think about the other person.
Why do people treat me like this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hi guys.
Hi, Tokyo Tops. So we are in Bangkok again for our yearly tradition pilgrimage down to White Party. We were gonna show you some little antics, I guess, from the party, but instead we ran into some things that I don't know have been piling up over the years, sort of situations that we've run into that we thought, this is actually a prime opportunity to start talking about the difficulties we find running into people in open relationships. Right. You in particular had a couple of instances.
I am devastated right now because this whole experience, you know, like one story happened during this White Party trip, another one happened back, you know, in October for Formosa Taipei Pride.
Yeah.
You know, these two incidents happened with the open relationship couples, kind of make me wonder, like maybe it's time for me to quit this secret scene because I'm so over it. So without further ado, let's go into the topic of today. So one day I went to, what's the name of the sauna? 10.
10, that's right.
10.
It's a new sauna that opened up, a new bathhouse that opened up in Bangkok in Siloam.
Is it pretty new?
I think it's pretty new. I've never been before.
I mean, apparently they have different events during this whole New Year's period, right? Like every single day they have something interesting. The mayor. We wanted to go to this event. It was actually yesterday as well. They did it twice. Yeah.
We missed it both times, unfortunately, but it looked fascinating. It was a mare event, like female horse, where some lucky boy got to just be in the middle of a group and pretty much just had to wait there, and everyone could take turns on him, and then at the end, not only does he get marked of how many people have had turns on him, but also then he gets to vote because he's blindfolded the whole time about which boy was the best. So someone won. I saw in the chat. There's a chat, and someone won. I don't know what their prize is, but yeah, there was. 210.
201. I don't know. Like was a one. Yeah.
So
200 something.
Out of that, there was one guy who was the best. It's a pretty good. You can be proud of yourself.
That's
I think
not pretty good. That's like crazy.
That's pretty good.
Anyways, I was not one of the horses. I did
That's
not go
tonight.
for that.
That's after this video. We're gonna take him back. We're gonna have our own event. Actually, let's be honest. They went to the sauna not for the sauna. They went to the sauna to find me because they knew that I was at the sauna.
For both, because I also want to, you know, play a little bit because it's New Year's. I want to celebrate New Year's with a little bit of fun. So yeah, I went there to hunt on you.
Yes.
But at the same time, I was there for fun as well. Like, so after we got in, we just I went to I think the bottom floor. How do you say that? The basement of the floor. Yeah. And they had a kind of like swim. How do you say like bathtub.
I guess it's a mini pool.
Mini pool. Yeah. And there were a couple of guys just like staying inside of the pool.
Yeah.
And we joined in, and there was like really hot Taiwanese guy. Okay. And I thought he was super hot. But I got in, of course, you know, the normal shy Meng. Like I wouldn't talk to him because I would usually avoid people who I think is attractive. So I was talking to a couple of other white guys in the pool. 視線を感じた. Do you know what I mean? Like I felt he's like staring at me or his eyes on me. So when I turned back, I thought like he was looking at me having a conversation with other people and with a smile on his face. But he was not alone. He was with someone else. It could be his friend or his lover, his partner. I didn't know at that time, okay? So later on, after we, you know, clean ourselves and we walk out of the little pool
area,
and then we went up for the cruising area. Then I played a little bit with other people. Later on, he and the person he was with found me. And they stopped upstairs. Okay. And they stopped. And that really handsome Taiwanese guy came over and approached me, but he didn't have any conversation with me. He talked to the person who next to him, asking for a permission. Can I let him lick it?
So he didn't ask you if you
didn't ask
wanted
me.
to have a taste.
No, I had no conversation with that guy at all. He was just talking to the guy next to him, right? And that person said like, sure, why not? Like, yes,
Okay,
you know.
okay.
And then he moved closer, and then next, after doing a little bit, he again asked for permission to the other guy,
Yeah.
and asking like, oh, can I like kiss him? Again, like the permission was granted.
Okay.
Then we proceed to the next step.
What was the other guy doing at that time?
I mean, I served him as well a little
Oh,
bit.
but okay,
Yeah, but he
okay.
wasn't like super into
Into
it. He didn't need to ask for permission from the handsome guy.
Okay. This seems a little bit.
Well, because
yeah,
I guess the other one was the lead.
Sure.
I don't know who is the lead because that guy's asking for the other
Yeah.
guy's permission, you know?
But I guess once permission is granted, then both are allowed to
Yeah.
whatever. It's
Well-
understood, mutually understood that both are okay with.
Yeah, I
what's
think the
going
partner was just there to support him. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like be with him, like like he wants to have a fun time.
Yeah.
Like with me at that moment,
Yeah.
and that partner is just there to support the situation,
on. Or control the
situation. Yeah. And then again, like after making out for a minute, he stopped, and then asked his partner that can he proceed with the penetration. How do you say like
the main event.
the main event, and also like the permission was granted.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we didn't have any conversation. Okay, he didn't ask me if he can do anything with me or anything. Then we did it. Okay, but during the time, it was so weird that like once he put his big stick
Yes.
inside of me, his husband immediately forced his head away, so he was not able to look at my face.
Oh, were you on your back?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it was missionary.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he was gonna look down, and his husband's like,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Oh,
Not no.
no.
I didn't know like was it a no or anything. I just remember that during the whole process that he wasn't looking at me at all. The whole time I didn't know how I felt about it because at the same time I was very attracted to that guy. Like he's crazily handsome,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
really
yeah.
handsome.
Yeah.
But at the same time I feel so humiliated, you know? I feel like I was dehumanized. Kind of like just used as a tool because
As a
there was
flashlight.
it's a flashlight because there was no interaction or connection where how do you say like connection with that person. Only during the part like we were making out a little
Yeah,
bit, and
yeah,
other than that, like
yeah.
I was basically how do I like ignored.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
ignored.
yeah,
Can I
yeah,
just say
yeah,
that?
yeah.
So I mean, I'm happy I did it with him because
he's
he was
hot.
my type.
Type.
But at the same time, I just feel like, why do people treat me like this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I think that's the.
but what do you think they're a couple?
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's like if you and I went to the bathhouse together, I wouldn't be like, can I go, do this? Like, obviously, like if you're friends, you just do, if you're a couple, you have these rules, and you see people having these rules all the time who are in relationships. So like 100%, I'm convinced that they were together.
Together, right?
Did the other guy like, did he look like he wanted to be there?
I actually try to, I'm a very nice person, so I was trying to make everyone feel involved and engaged. So I actually made an effort to try to kiss that guy and also make
wasn't-
him. No, he wasn't very into it. I'm open to play with both of them,
yeah.
but it seems like the other guy was just there very like passively, or I don't know.
Aggressive? No, like
no,
it was
not
very
aggressively.
Possessively.
Possessively, yeah.
Yeah. And
That's how I felt about the situation.
When you said like you felt ignored, that is very, very common for me when I'm doing something with someone, even if the partner's not there. There's some sort of like, I cannot, because of rules or whatever, but I can't actually go that beyond a certain point with you. It's because we can't kiss. We have a rule about not kissing, or we have some rules ABCD. I have to make sure that I don't actually have intimacy with you. It has to always stop and be just physical and stuff like that. And it's not that I can't. Obviously, I can have sex that's just physical, but I find it happens so often within these sort of open relationships sort of thing where it's kind of consistently like holding you like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's such a vibe kill. It's such a vibe kill when you're like running into someone, you like them, you think you're gonna have a connection, but it can be so stale. I think another thing that I really dislike is they're the ones who are making all the rules and controlling the whole situation.
Yeah.
Like, where are your needs in that? Do you know what I mean? Can I do this? Can I do? He never even asked you once.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you did want it.
Obviously I wanted.
If you said no, if you said no, obviously they would probably respect that. I'm not saying necessarily about that, but that whole situation is built around those two. You are an afterthought. And I think that is just, it's kind of sad. I don't even know if people in open relationships even think about the other person. It's slightly selfish.
You know, sometimes like when you finish with another person, being like, you know, after sex, they will kiss you and saying goodbye, like thank you, like, I love that, like, you know, you're great or something. I don't necessarily need a conversation afterward, but he kind of just like pulled out his dick and walked away. Yeah, exactly. Like very quickly.
Yeah. It's like.
Did I tell you that? No. But you
so he was just
expected.
like, and then he just finished, and then he was like,
yeah, exactly. That's what happened.
You were just a fleshlight, literally, and disposed of. Kind of like he came in like a tanga, and then was like,
exactly. I'm wondering why did he do that? Because is he afraid of like making his husband looking at my face gonna make him like fall in love with me? Where does it maybe like it makes him feel jealous? I don't know. Like, you know, what's the mentality behind?
Well, I mean, it's like all these rules, right? It's always, I can't begin to understand how or why these rules exist, because everyone's also like their own people. But it's like you have people sometimes who allow each other to have sex, but they can't kiss, right? And so it's an assumption, but I assume that's because the kissing aspect can be more intimate.
Right.
So like maybe there is something about connecting eyes or something like that. There's an intimacy, there's a connection that can happen, as opposed to, let's say if I'm looking at you, you know, as my partner and just fucking, I can have a connection here that maybe connects with my body here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like by keeping your face here, he's just feeling physical sensations, but is having maybe more of an eye-to-eye emotional, I think that's possible. That's what I would imagine. That way you can separate the physicality from the, you know, other aspect of it.
So I actually remember that during the whole process, the main event, I tried to kiss him, but like he was very occupied by his husband, and I was like thinking, what's going on?
You're thinking like this with your legs up, and they're just like passive, like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, at one moment I was trying to grab him, but he was like holding his head like so hard, like almost like choking him.
Yeah.
So he couldn't like, you know, engage with me in that way. So like,
and I think that's why getting back when you're like, oh, maybe it was just a thing. No, if he's physically like choking his husband to make sure he doesn't, that is a level of possessiveness control. It's not about, oh, I want you to look at me, baby, this is romantic. It's do not look at him. It's very controlling and creepy, to be honest. I don't know, maybe it's just me where it's always like all their baggage and insecurities being thrown away. I just have to accept it if I want to have the sex, which is kind of true, right? Like obviously we have the choice to say no and walk away, but we say yes because he was like you said, he's a hot Taiwanese guy, right? But if we're actually still looking at it from an objective point of view, all the power was in their court. The only power you had was to say like no and walk away from that, right?
Yeah.
And then you do get involved in other people's insecurities, which is what the next story we'll talk about, which was like another version of that, where it's just like, don't throw this, like I have nothing to do with this. Why are you bringing me into this? We were at Taipei Pride a couple months ago, and we're on the dance floor having fun, you know, at Formosa, and this guy, really cute guy, who's so happy and coming over, talks to me. He's like, oh, hey, I'm a fan of the channel, and just wanted to say hi. I'm like, oh, cool, and so we're just chatting or whatever. And he's like, oh, like, I think he said partner. My partner's also a fan of the channel. He's just back there. Like, can I introduce you guys? So I was like, yeah, totally, too. Comes over. We're like, oh, hi. And I was like, oh, Meng is just up there. Like, you should say hi. And then like I like touch you, and you turn around. And you're like, oh, hi. And it was just like we're all partying and having a good time and like having fun, right? So then we're just dancing together and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not tuning out, but I'm just like back to the party, right?
Yeah.
And then you guys started talking.
I think we had a conversation, talking about like just introducing ourselves and talking about how he enjoyed the channel, talk about Japan. Yeah, we had a small conversation. But later on, like it's a very common thing at the circle party. You want to exchange Instagram,
just keep in
right?
touch.
Yeah, just like keeping in touch. I wouldn't say like I was trying to hook up with that guy or trying to attract that guy. It's just a very common thing to do at circle parties. And I hand over my phone, but and like you, I wasn't introduced to his partner, so I didn't know that he had a partner.
Okay.
And later on, my phone was kind of like thrown back at me.
Yeah, it wasn't later on. It was like instant.
Instant.
I'm sitting here dancing, and I see you like hand this over, and it was like intercepted. It was like football when someone was like throwing, and then someone runs up and like grabs
Catching.
it. The guy from behind, the partner, like reached over, snatched your phone, ripped it away, held it up high, and he looked at his boy. I remember thinking, oh my God, he looked at his boyfriend or partner like a dog and said, no.
He said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he had the phone up here, and I was just like, I laughed out loud because it was so out of like
It was
left
so
field.
sudden.
It was so sudden and so extreme that like I didn't mean to laugh in a way of like haha like you're having a fight, but that was just my gut of it because it was so outrageous. Okay, so I got it, like his boyfriend, whatever, they have some sort of rule, maybe some sort of rule was broken, assumption on my part, but maybe this whole thing makes it look like you guys are gonna flirt and keep in touch, and that's like whatever, right? But like at the same time, I'm also looking at both of them, and they're like this extremely gorgeous couple, and it's so, I'm not saying that, obviously gorgeous couples have their own insecurities and stuff like that. Of course, but I look at them and I'm like, what are you guys threatened about? Like, you guys are so super hot and like
super tall
and super
as well.
and just handsome and
Tall,
look really
muscular, handsome, like typical golden couple.
Yeah. So it was also really surprising to see. It was as if you were coming in with your hammer trying to like break them up or whatever. It was just something very simple as that was like elicited like such a strong reaction. And then the guy who originally came up to me, like he was dancing next to me. It was really awkward after because I was like, I don't know how to play. How do I not make light of the situation, but where do we go from here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of looking at him and being like, okay, let's have fun. And he was like, it's like also doing the same thing, like we're good. And I was like, okay. And I think it actually happened twice because I think
because I didn't know he had a partner, right? So when I passed over the phone, it was hijacked by another person and passed it back to me in a very rude way, almost like thrown at me, you know?
Yes.
And I was like, okay, what's going on? I didn't ask for your Instagram. Sorry, I'm asking this person's Instagram. I didn't know that they were related because I didn't have the prior conversation. With like, they're both fan of the channel, they're couples. I didn't know anything about that. I was like, is there any misunderstanding? So I was very confused at the moment. I passed my phone back to him again, like,
You just went back with the second sledgehammer, you're like going at it again, just like.
And then I saw, then that time I was like, okay, really saw his partner's face. He was like very angry and very like, outraged.
The eyes
were like burning with
fire. Like,
I will murder you.
I remember my reaction was like what's going on?
I remember both of us looked at each other like what's
going on? The guy who was talking to me was very nice, and he passed the phone back and explained the situation, saying like my partner didn't like it, like he's not allowing this, so like I'm sorry. And I was like, oh, no problem, that's okay. Then I finally understood the situation. That's when I realized that they were a couple, and I'm kind of like ruining the vibe for them, which I still think I didn't, like I'm just
that's exactly it. That's exactly what pisses me off about this sort of situation is, how is this your fault? Again, they're bringing their insecurities and their baggage and stuff like that. And it's like, you weren't coming in with a sledgehammer, but you were treated as if that you were like actively trying to like make a move, and like you were not respecting that they're in a relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, like as you said earlier, like when I look at his partner, I'm like, oh my god, this guy is so handsome and so gorgeous. Like, how do you think I will steal your love away from you? You know, like how do you think I'm gonna be a threat to your relationship? Sometimes I'm just like really like curious, like what's the like your calculation with your theory or mindset like behind the scene, you know?
Yeah.
And it's actually not my first time being accused of like trying to steal other people's partner and making them feel like unsafe. Like a couple of years ago, we had an incident amongst like our mutual friends, like we're no longer friends anymore, but like I was just sending some text messages and being friendly, and suddenly one day the guy also is tall and handsome and muscular, handsome and tall, messaged me like saying like you're a bitch, like you're a little sneaky snake, like you're trying to steal other people's boyfriend. So I'm like a little bit traumatized by that kind of like experience again. Like, you know, how do you think I'm gonna steal your boyfriend from you? You know, like that's.
And again, I think that's another good example. It has nothing to do with you. That is that guy feeling insecure in his relationship, and he's projecting it onto other people. It's hard for him to think, shit, something's happening in the relationship that I'm insecure about. It might be my fault, it might be their fault. It's so much easier to throw it on this other person and blame them. If you were like, oh, hey, baby, you want to meet up? That's separate, right? No. But I think, you know, what I've experienced, I think what we're trying to talk about here is the times that like we're being innocent. There's no issue. Like you like the Taiwanese guy that you liked originally. You didn't do anything with him. You didn't go find him. You didn't try to do anything. They came to you. And then after that impose all these rules and all this stuff, right? It's like you were passive in this situation and yet somehow treated suspiciously. So
can it be I'm just a double threat?
You're a triple threat.
I'm a triple threat.
You're a triple threat. You should. I think your next white party costume, you should just carry around a sledgehammer, like a foam one or whatever, and then just be like home wrecker on it, and then you could even just find cute couples and be like boop boop and take pictures. It's difficult because I've met at white party. I met guys who are really handsome that I wanted to dance with and kiss. And they were in relationships, and we were able to dance together and kiss because of the open relationship, right? So there are benefits. Like if everyone was closed, I wouldn't be making out with practically any boys because so many people are in relationships, right? So like, you know, there is obviously an aspect where like I do benefit from the openness at times, and we can sort of kiss and have fun. But I think that those couples, are a lot more secure in their own relationship together and stuff like that. So it's not all bad, but there's so much of it that I find is dramatic. And I also feel, again, maybe a hot take, that in a lot of open relationships, I think one person wants to be in it and one person doesn't. And the other person who doesn't...
Just trying to save
the relationship. And that is a key aspect, I think, of like insecurity, and especially when that then person looks at another person and you've agreed to the open relationship, but you're not secure in your relationship. There's an insecurity there, flares things up. Maybe I should just never fuck around with people in open relationships.
Wait, it's all my stories. Why you apply it to yourself right now?
No, because it's just more. Your stories remind me of things.
Of course,
that
we all have similar.
We all have those experiences, and the Taipei Pride story. I was actually there, seeing it play out from an objective third party. Like, holy fuck! And they're probably already watching this, so apologies. But maybe they'll.
You guys are super
unsubscribe.
cute.
They're
You guys
super
are super handsome.
But he was not a threat.
Well, I would say if one of us, then you shouldn't add Andrew's Instagram, because Andrew's is more chatty. I'm not chatty at all. I'm like
shy. If you give it to me, I'll be like, oh, okay, what's up?
He was still your boyfriend. I'm not the person to blame, honestly.